Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I've got a fun video for you guys today. I'm going to be sharing with you my top 3 makeup products within every category of makeup, drugstore edition. I'm going to come back in a couple weeks and do a high-end version of this, but today it is all about drugstore makeup, from primers, foundations, concealers, cheek products, brow products, eyeshadows, everything. These are my top 3 in each of those categories. This was so fun to come up with. I've got all of the makeup here in front of me and I have to say, you guys, this is a pretty awesome mix of items. I have some newer favorites, some that have been favorites for years and years, but all of these I absolutely swear by. So I hope you guys are excited. Before we get into all the makeup, I want to give a special welcome to any of you that are new here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel before you leave and make sure that your notifications are turned on. With that said, we have a lot of makeup to talk about, so let's get right to it. All right, let's jump right in with primers. Now, these are not necessarily in any particular order, but if there is a standout within each category, as in like an absolute number one, I'll share that with you. So the first primer I want to mention is a newer discovery for me. It's the Physicians Formula Butter Glow Liquid Highlighter. I use this much more as a primer than as a liquid highlighter. It is a very glowy primer. This is really meant to give your skin a little bit of extra glow if you like that look underneath a foundation or on its own. And it is pretty intensely glowy. This is actually a dupe for the Say Glowy Super Gel. These are almost exact dupes, but it's a lot cheaper. You get a ton of product inside here, 1.3 ounces. That is so much. And you really don't need a lot of this. I really just like to use this underneath my foundation, just on the high points of my face. It looks so pretty. If you have really good skin, you like just throwing something glowy on your skin and then maybe a little bit of concealer and going. I feel like this would be a really good product for that. I have too much to cover. I can't really do that. Maybe back in my 20s, I could have done that. Or if it's summertime, you just want some glow on like your shoulders or your collarbone. This has such a pretty pearly effect to it. I absolutely love it. Another primer from the drugstore that I love is the Halo Glow from e.l.f. This stuff is so good. It really is a very close dupe to the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. I think they have the same formula. They're both nice and creamy. It has a really pretty glow to it, and it does give you just a hint of coverage, whereas this one is just pearly. It doesn't really have like a coverage base to it. It's more of like a clear gel. This does have some color to it. I mean, it's not going to give you much coverage. I would say a very low light coverage. But again, if you have great skin and you just want something that's going to help your skin to look very luminous and dewy, this is really pretty. It's also a really pretty primer. That's mainly how I use this. It's also how I use my Charlotte Tilbury for the most part. But you can definitely use it on top of your foundation. You can use it as a standalone product. It has a lot of multi-purpose uses for it, but for me, I really use it just as a primer. And the last one I have to share is probably my very favorite primer of all time, and that is the Flower Beauty Celestial Priming Whip. I love this stuff. This is the most hydrating primer of the ones that I'm mentioning today. Those ones really just give you more glow than anything. This one actually adds hydration to your skin, so if you have dry skin, you will love this stuff. It comes out as kind of like a mousse. Let me just show you guys. I'm actually just about out. I ordered another one of these yesterday from Ulta. So there it is right there. It's so nice. It has like a subtle cooling effect. It does give you the tiniest bit of a glow, but it's nothing too extreme. It feels so good on your skin. And it makes a great base for your foundations to go on top of. I absolutely love it. Winter or summer, it's definitely my favorite primer that I own. Okay, we've got some foundations. Now these ones I don't necessarily know that, I don't know. There's probably one that I've repurchased more than any of them. Let's just get into it. The first one I wanted to mention is the Wet n Wild Dewy Foundation. This is not the most long-wearing foundation that I own, but the reason I wanted to mention this because I think it is a really great foundation, especially for its price. And I love recommending a foundation like this as kind of like a supplemental foundation, whether that be for the finish or for the shade. I think it's nice to have a foundation to mix into other foundations when they're not quite right. Either the finish is a little too dry or the shade is a little bit off. I have a couple shades of this. I have this shade, which is slightly light on me right now. This is the shade, where is it? Soft beige. And then I have a darker shade that's quite a bit too dark for me. And I love using that one as a mix-in for other foundations that I need to darken up just a little bit. It's one of the most affordable, good foundations at the drugstore. You can find this for under $5 depending on where you buy it. At least last I checked. It's been a while since I checked on this, but I think it's really great. If you have dry skin or you like something that looks a little bit more luminous, this is a beautiful foundation for such a good price. Another favorite foundation from the drugstore is the Milani Conceal Imperfect. I have the shade shade 03 Light Beige, which is such a perfect shade match for me right now. This is the foundation that I'm wearing on my skin today. I didn't have to add anything to it. It matched my neck just perfectly. This is a really high coverage foundation. I'd say it has more coverage than the Dewy from Wet n Wild. It's kind of thick and rich and creamy, but it doesn't feel heavy on my skin once I blend it in. It feels pretty hydrating on me. I wouldn't really call it a dewy finish, but I also wouldn't call it a matte finish either. It's more of just a natural finish that remains a little bit more on the hydrating side. But I love this stuff, mainly for its coverage. This gives you really great coverage. It's so easy to put on. It goes on well with your fingers, with a sponge, or with a brush. I applied mine with a brush today and I feel like it gave me such great coverage. It wears pretty well. I wouldn't say it's as long wearing as the one that we'll be talking about in just a second, but it is very long wearing, much more long wearing than the Wet n Wild. And I would say this is one of the few foundations that I don't often mix in or use another foundation with because it's just so, it performs so well all on its own. The shade and the formula I think are perfect. And probably my number one foundation, mainly because I've repurchased this foundation so many times, is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation. This foundation is more tricky for my dry skin. I have to make sure that I'm very well hydrated underneath, or I use this with something that's a little bit more on the hydrating side. This is one of my favorite foundations to use as a mix-in. If I need a foundation that's more on the luminous or dewy side to last a little bit longer, I will add an equal amount of this and it helps with longevity. This is the most long-wearing foundation and transfer-resistant foundation I think that I own. Say that I'm going to an amusement park in the middle of the summer. I know it's gonna get hot and sweaty. This is the foundation that I will wear alone because I know it's gonna hold up the best. Now I know there are some people that don't like the finish of this foundation. It's not quite as hydrating as some of the others that I've mentioned or what I typically reach for, but there are times where I need something that's going to last really well, that's gonna be transfer resistant. This is the best one that I have found for that. And if you do have dry skin, you can use this on its own. You just have to make sure that you're well hydrated underneath, whether that's with a primer or just an extra layer of moisturizer, maybe like a little bit of a face oil. That will really help this foundation not be as drying as it can be if you don't do those things. Let's talk concealers. Let's start with the concealer that's been a long time favorite for me, and that is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. I think this is such a great concealer. Every time I go back to this, I'm reminded of how great this is. It's such a great value. This is, I think they're $6 a bottle. I have two different shades here. They're actually both completely the wrong shade. I have to mix them together to get my right shade. But the formula of this is really nice. You get fantastic coverage. It's hydrating, but it's not slippery. It doesn't like slide around. It's not too greasy feeling. There are some hydrating concealers that I've tried over the years that just move around too much or they just feel too like there's too much grease or oil in them. That's not the case with this one. It's really nice. It wears well. You don't need a lot of this. It's very full coverage, but more than anything, it's the value. I mean, for $6, you get 0.33 ounces in these bottles, which is so much product. And I think they have a pretty good shade range as well, especially if you buy them online. Next up is a newer favorite, and that is the Flower Beauty Serum Concealer. I really like this concealer. This is one of my discoveries from 2023. This is a really nice lightweight concealer that has really good coverage. Now, my only issue with this concealer, so I have 3 shades of this. I think the three lightest shades that they offer I own. So I have Ivory, Light Medium, and then the shade Light. So their shade range is not fantastic, and I will be honest, none of these shades are the perfect match for me, but the formula I absolutely love. It's very nice. It goes on really well. It reminds me of kind of like the Revlon Candid Concealer, the Kosas Concealer. It just feels really nice on the skin. I think if you have more fine lines in your skin, give this a try. You don't need very much of it, which helps with settling into fine lines. The less concealer you need to use, the better off you will be. I've been really happy with it. I find myself reaching for it again and again, and it definitely compares to some of my favorite high-end concealers. But probably my number one favorite concealer at the drugstore, which is also a newer discovery, is the Physicians Formula Butter Glow Concealer. I've been raving about this stuff all year since I first tried it out in the spring. I absolutely love it. Again, the shade range with this concealer is actually even worse than the Flower Beauty. I think they only offer 6 or 7 shades total. There's quite the range in there from light to dark, but it's going to be pretty hard for nearly anyone to find their perfect shade. You might have to combine a couple together, but formula wise, I absolutely love this concealer. I would say it's even a little bit more hydrating than the Flower Beauty, but again, it's not greasy. It doesn't slip and slide around on me. It just feels so nice on my skin. It has the perfect level of like high medium coverage. It blends like a dream. It wears really well, and it also has this really soft, delicious smell that I think is so pleasant. I guess my only other complaint is you don't get a ton of product inside here. It only includes 0.19 ounces, but I don't mind that so much with this because I love the formula so much. And by the way, I didn't mention, but the Flower Beauty, these have 0.33 ounces, so quite a bit more product than what you get from Physicians Formula. Let's move on to bronzers. So I've got some new favorites in my bronzer category, and then some that will not be a surprise to you that have been favorites of mine for a long time. Let's start with a new one, and that would be the Essence Baby Got Bronze. I really like this cream bronzer. It is super affordable. I think you can find this for under $5. I have the shade Cinnamon Spice, which is a really good, nice, warm bronzer shade for me. They also have a cooler shade. That one was almost too cool on me, but if you do like to do some sculpting or contouring, you might like that shade. I just generally don't like cooler tone contour shades, but I really like this stuff. It's nice and blendable. It has this beautiful kind of watermelon scent that I love. I love putting this on my cheeks. Just as you're applying it, you kind of get that waft of like 1990s lip balm. Maybe that's why I love this so much. It has this mysterious kind of nostalgia to the scent that just gets me, like, makes me happy every time I put it on. But formula-wise, I think it's great. It kind of compares to something along the lines of like the Milk Makeup bronzer stick, which I really love, you guys know. A year ago, I probably would have included my e.l.f. putty bronzer in this spot, but this one has bumped that one out. I like it just a little bit more. I will say though, this one is a little bit warmer than the putty bronzer in tan lines. So if you find this one to be a little bit too warm for you, maybe go over to the e.l.f. one. Formula wise, I think they're somewhat similar to each other. I just like the color and the scent of this one and the price of this one a little bit better. Also in my top 3 bronzers from the drugstore, I would have to include the Milani Silky Matte bronzer in the shade 02. This is a beautiful powder bronzer from the drugstore. Part of me felt guilty for choosing this one over my Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This has been a longtime favorite of I think everybody on YouTube for the last 10 years. Maybe not 10 years, 5 years. But I have to say, you guys, ever since they changed the packaging to the newer packaging, I find the formula, although it wears beautifully, it's a little bit dusty and powdery and messy. Oh, the scent of this one should almost put it in my top ranking. But the fact that it kind of is messier and dustier and less firmly pressed than the old version was kind of bothers me just a little bit, even though it applies fine. It's just very messy to use. And I miss my old formula that was pressed more firmly. It was just much easier to use. But the Milani is not that way. It's very well pressed, which I really love. I love a bronzer that I can really dig my brush into and not worry about too much powder getting on my brush or making a mess everywhere. This one's a great shade for me. It's warm without being too orange. It does a little bit of sculpting, but I would say more warming than sculpting. Just a very easy bronzer from the drugstore to use with a really nice formula. And then last, probably still in my #1 spot, has been a long time favorite of mine, and that is the Flower Beauty Heat Wave Bronzer in Sunrise L1. I believe this is back in stock on Ulta's website. Last I checked it was. Now this is the bronzer. If ever I get asked from someone, what's a good bronzer for my more fair skin that is not going to turn me orange? This is the bronzer that I recommend. This is the anti-orange bronzer, full stop. I wouldn't call it ashy, but it has this like cooler, almost more purpley tone. I know that sounds very unappealing. You have to try it to believe it. It does this like beautiful kind of soft sculpting job that's also almost blushy more than ashy. I feel like I'm describing myself into a corner here. I'm not making much sense. It really is the bronzer for those of you that find almost every bronzer to turn you orange. Give this shade a try. It's beautiful. The formula is really nice. It has a very soft sheen to it. It just looks so lovely on the skin, especially if you have more fair skin. I think you'll absolutely love this bronzer. Now for blushes. I actually have 2 new drugstore blushes in this category that I discovered this year, starting with this one right here, which is one of my favorite blush discoveries from 2023. It's from Revolution. This is the Blushed Duo in Kindness. I don't like this highlighter so much, but this blush, you guys, it is the blush that I'm wearing on my cheeks today. By the way, I'm also wearing the Flower Beauty bronzer. I don't know if I said that. This blush is so beautiful. I actually did a dupe video comparing this to one of my Pat McGrath blushes, and it is a very close dupe. Shade-wise, performance-wise, it's so pretty. It's one of the prettiest kind of almost rusty nude shade. It's just like a warmer nude that's really soft and beautiful. It's nice and pigmented. It's super easy to apply. I just think it is so pretty. It's one of my most reached for powder blushes. Another one that's also quite new to me is from Essence. This is the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush in Berry Cheeks. Now I just ordered another shade or two of these. I have one other shade that I think was one of their lightest shades that was too light for me. It just didn't even show up on me, but this one is beautiful, especially for the fall. It is a little bit on the deeper side, but I don't find it to be too deep for me. It's a nice like cooler tone rosy color that's perfect for the winter time. And the formula of this is beautiful. It reminds me so much of the MAC Mineralized blush formula. It's absolutely stunning. I know a lot of people have been raving about these this last year. I didn't quite get what the hype was after I tried out the first shade, but now that I've tried out this shade, I kind of get it. And last but not least is a longtime favorite from the drugstore, and that would be the Flower Beauty Gel Crush Lip and Cheeks. And if I had to pick one shade, I love all of the shades, but the shade that I would most recommend is like the go-to wear with anything kind of nude shade is Peach Crush. This is just a beautiful, soft, peachy pink. It is so, so pretty. I love the formula of these. They do have more of a almost like a tacky feel and look to them that I think some people might be turned off by. I actually like that on my cheeks. I think if you're a little bit older, there's something about adding that little bit of like hydration to your cheeks that just plumps them up a little bit and makes me feel like I don't look quite as like old and dried out and pruny as I feel sometimes. Maybe it's just in my head, but I like the added hydration to my cheeks. I don't necessarily say that they're like super long wearing. I do think you get better wear time for the most part with a powder blush. Honestly, if you really want longevity from your blush, layer up a cream and a powder. You can either put the cream on the bottom and the powder on top or vice versa. I know that's how Patrick Ta recommends doing it with his duos, is putting the powder down first and then the cream on top. Either way, it's gonna give you a little bit more color, but it'll also help your blush last a little bit longer. Anyways, I love the gel crushes. These are so beautiful. You can wear them on your lips and your cheeks, which there's a lot of products that claim that to be the case, but very few of them I feel like they actually work for both. This one actually does. It's a fun one to throw in your like go bag if you have a bag in your car or like a travel makeup bag that you like to take with you. This is a really good product because it's very multi-purpose. Highly recommend these. I know I've been talking about them for years, but if you are into cream cheek products, this is still one of my favorite formulas. Next up is highlighters. Let's start with this one right here. This is a newer discovery for me, but you guys, I have not been able to stop using this highlighter. It is the Essence The Highlighter. I have the shade Mesmerizing. I just ordered another shade. I ordered the like rose gold shade, I believe. I can't remember what it was called. This shade I absolutely love though. It's a really nice, light kind of warm champagne. It's so pretty, you guys. I love the formula of this. It's very intense without being glittery. It looks beautiful on the skin. Oh, I keep pointing at my cheeks. I'm not wearing this one on my cheeks today, by the way. Oh, I keep doing this. I am wearing this on my cheeks today. Did I say that? Come on, Mandy, get it together. How about this? I'll put a star by everything that I'm wearing down below. I've just been so impressed with this highlighter formula. I liked it when I first tried it, but when I couldn't stop reaching for it, I mean, I have a bunch of highlighters on top of my desk, my little drawer here that sits here when I do my makeup. And this is the only one that I've been reaching for. Like I'll think about reaching for my MAC or one of my other favorites, but this is the one that I go back to again and again. So clearly it's doing something for me. It's kind of that perfect mix of intense without being too sparkly or glittery or chalky. It's just a really nice formula that looks gorgeous on the skin that I absolutely love, especially for the price. You cannot beat this. Just be careful with the packaging. Mine is kind of falling apart and crumbling and making a big mess, and still I reach for it every day. But I have some other longer standing favorites from the drugstore, one of them being the Revolution Highlighter Reloaded in Just My Type. Mine is broken, which is sort of annoying. A lot of my drugstore packages are broken. This is not the only one. But I love this highlighter. This is such a great shade and formula of highlighter. It's such a pretty, kind of like peachy pink champagne that is just so beautiful if you have more fair or light medium skin. And I would say it's a little bit more of a natural looking highlighter, but I wouldn't call it like super natural looking. It's definitely still gonna show up on you, but it's not quite as intense as my very favorite highlighter that we'll get to in just a sec. It's a great formula. I still love this thing and use it quite a bit, and it's, I think, one of the best from the drugstore. But still, the best highlighter from the drugstore, and not even just that, this is still my #1 highlighter of all time, is the Revlon Skin Lights Highlighter in Daybreak Glimmer. This is so pretty. It is much more of a warm gold, but it's a very light color, so it's not gonna look like yellow on your skin if you're more fair-skinned. Look how reflective this is, you guys. I mean, this highlighter is very intense. It's quite a bit more extreme than the other two that I mentioned, but it's still not glittery. And you can definitely use it with a light hand if you don't want to get that level of intensity out of it. I just think it is so pretty on the cheeks. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I feel like the longer you use it, the better it gets. This is one of those highlighters that when I first got it, I didn't dislike it, but the more I used it and kind of dug into it and got rid of that like top crustier layer, it just got nice and creamy and dreamy, and I absolutely love it. I still need to buy a replacement. Not even necessarily because the packaging is broken. I mean, that would be part of the reason, but if I ever run out of this and they happen to discontinue it, I feel like I will be heartbroken. I just can't see myself living without this highlighter. I think it is the best that there is. All right, let's move into mascaras. I'm gonna try and not talk quite as much. So the first one is the Essence Lash Princess. I still think this is one of the best mascaras that the drugstore has to offer. The only bad thing about this mascara is it's not very water resistant, which is kind of a big deal to me, but still it does such amazing things for your lashes. For a $5 mascara, I just don't know that you can beat this. And I know that so many of you also love this mascara. It's been a favorite of so many people for so many years, and it still shows up in favorites videos all the time, and for good reason. It's just really, really good. I have a newer favorite to share with you guys. I think I mentioned this in a favorites video last month. This one I discovered a couple of months ago, but it is fastly becoming one of my very favorite mascaras, and that is the Flower Beauty Dream Warrior mascara. I think I've tried all of her other mascara releases, and I haven't always been wild about the Flower Beauty mascaras. There's been things about them I didn't like a lot, but this one I absolutely love. This is the mascara that I'm wearing on my lashes today. It does such great things for my lashes. It kind of reminds me of my Tower 28 mascara, maybe slightly more clumpy, because I think the Tower 28 mascara is one of the least clumpy mascaras that there is. But I still wouldn't call this a clumpy mascara. It just gives me such great volume, length, and curl. I absolutely love it. It makes it look like I have a lot more lashes than I actually do, or than other mascaras will make me look like I have. It wears really well. It's quite water resistant. I wouldn't say it's quite as like indestructible as the one that I'll be talking about in just a second here, spoiler alert. But if I have just mild watery eyes throughout the day, this will hold up just fine. It doesn't smudge or flake on me, and it removes pretty easily with some warm water and soap. I just think this is so good, very underrated. It does have pretty good reviews. Maybe people are catching on to this mascara. I think it's so, so good. I've absolutely been loving this. It's been the one that I've used probably the most over the last 2 months. Mine's probably almost gone. I probably need to buy a replacement, and I don't run through mascaras very often because I usually switch them up so often, but this one's been getting a lot of playtime for me lately. But probably my number one mascara would have to be the Maybelline Sky High. I have the Cosmic Black one right here. I still have this one. I actually need to throw this one away. It's basically gone. This is just the original. These perform exactly the same. I don't find the Cosmic Black to be any different looking than just the standard Very Black or Blackest Black. Everyone else think that's kind of annoying and confusing that there's like a black mascara and then a blacker than black mascara. Like, just have one really dark black and then do a brown or something else. I don't get it. Sorry for the rant. I love this mascara. Now, I wouldn't even necessarily say that this makes my lashes look better than any mascara, but this mascara makes my lashes look really good, and it holds up so amazingly well. I mean, this is basically like a waterproof mascara that you can remove without using waterproof mascara remover. You can remove it with soap and water. If your water has to be pretty warm, you might have to spend a little bit more time getting it off, but I don't really need like a melt or like a makeup remover to get it off. And I love how well this wears on my eyes when they are very watery. This is kind of my go-to mascara in the springtime when I'm watching sports, or if I'm out like taking pictures and my eyes are just like running like faucets. This will hold up to that kind of extreme conditions. I love it. If you don't like mascaras that are clumpy, this is a really good mascara that does not clump at all. It's not the most volumizing mascara, but it does a pretty good job, and for how well it wears, I just can't say enough good things about it. And that's just the normal one, not the waterproof one. I know they do make a waterproof one, but just the normal one alone is very water resistant. Let's go through some favorite drugstore brow products. So these are all quite new to me. The first one is the Essence Brow Styling Soap Set. This is probably my favorite brow product that I discovered this last year. I absolutely love it. There is a bit of a learning curve to this as far as how much product to use or how wet to get your brush before you dip into the soap. But once you figure out the learning curve on this, it is amazing. This does such a good job at holding your brows in place, and also it's kind of like a prep step for me as well. So this has kind of replaced my e.l.f. brow wax, the Shape and Stay brow wax. I still love that product, but this I think is a little bit better if I have a little bit more time. It holds up better. I can use this alone and then either just fill in with a pencil or with some brow powder, and I am done. And the price, I think it's under $5. This stuff is amazing. As for my favorite drugstore brow pencil, I have to say it is the Blade Brow from Revolution Beauty. This has replaced my Ulta Beauty Ultra Slim Brow Pencil, which I do still love, but this one I think I like a little bit better because it's a little bit stiffer. It actually reminds me quite a bit of the Benefit Gimme Brow, but this stuff, it's a fraction of the price. You can find this for like $2.98. Now the only downside to this is I don't think they have a very good shade range. I want to say they only offer like 2 shades. I have the shade, I think it's just brown. So this is the shade brown, but I want to show you guys a side-by-side swatch because this is an almost exact color dupe for my Benefit Precisely My Brow. So this is shade number 3. This is the Benefit pencil that I use. So there they are, side by side. I do think that the Revolution one is just a smidge darker than the Benefit. It's also a tiny bit slimmer, but formula-wise, they remind me so much of each other. This one is really nice and stiff. You can get really nice and precise with it. It has a good spoolie on it, and it's $3. You cannot beat that. Then last is my NYX, the Brow Glue. I have 2 shades of this. I like them both depending on if I'm using like a darker pencil like this. I'll usually go with the shade Taupe, which is more of like a clear. But if I'm just using a brow gel on its own, I really like using the shade Medium Brown to give my brows some color at the same time as setting them in place. It's a great brow gel. I like these type of brow gels more than just like the really liquidy clear ones. This one has some like, almost like a hair gel quality to it, or like a pomade. It's kind of like a hybrid. I don't know. It's like a jelly pomade. I can't explain it. It's just, it's very interesting and different. I like this type of a product more than the ones that are more like milky or waxy feeling. They tend to hold my brows in place a little bit better. And this is probably the brow gel that I've been using more than any lately. For lips, I just broke it down to 2 categories, just lip liners and lip glosses. I didn't even include a lipstick category because I have not been using lipsticks almost this entire year. Let's talk about lip liners first. The first one that I want to mention is the one that I'm wearing. Actually, I'm wearing 2. I'm wearing this as like the color on my lips today. This is the Revlon Color Stay Long Wear Lip Liner in the shade Natural. I really like this lip liner, but I like this more as like a fill in my lips with color. It's a really, really light nude that has this really soft sheen to it that looks so pretty on the lips. This is kind of hard to find. I've noticed that when I look it up online, it's packaged differently from different places, so I don't know if like the lip liner itself is a little bit different. I will try and find this exact one and link it for you guys down below. I just bought this at my local Walmart, but I really like this. It's nice and long wearing. It has this pretty soft nude color. This with a darker lip liner just overlined on the center of my lips makes the most beautiful nude lip, and then just a tiny bit of gloss on top. Absolutely gorgeous. Another favorite of mine is from LA Girl. This is the Shockwave lip liner in the shade Mauve. This is the one that I'm wearing with the Revlon today just to overline in the center. It's a little bit on the darker side. It's really good formula. It's nice and long wearing. It's just a good kind of pinky berry cooler nude. I love shades like this. It kind of reminds me of a more pink version of Iconic Nude from Charlotte Tilbury. These hold up really well. If you let them set in place, they will not budge for hours, and they're super affordable. I think these are around $5 a piece. And last, probably my #1 favorite, has been a long time favorite of mine. It's from LA Girl. This is the Ultimate Intense Wear Auto Lip Liner in the shade Nonstop Nude. I think this is probably one of the most perfect nude lip liner colors of all time. It's nice and pink without being too bright pink. It's more like a nude pink that's not too light or too dark. It's not too warm or too cool. Kind of goes with anything. These are also very long wearing. They're retractable, so you don't have to sharpen them, which I absolutely love. And again, you can't beat the price on these. They're around $5, and sometimes you can find them on sale for closer to $3 or $4. Now for my top 3 lip glosses. First off is the CoverGirl Clean Fresh Yummy Gloss. This one specifically is the shade or the flavor Coconut. I love these glosses. They're really nice. Now they don't have any shimmer in them. They're more of like a sheer kind of clear base, but they're very comfortable. If you don't like sticky lip glosses, I think you will love these. This one is mostly clear. It doesn't have a ton of color in it. Let me just throw a little on top. It smells so good. I absolutely love these. Charlie really likes these as well. Gives you really nice shine. I love adding a gloss on top of a lip liner. That is all I've been doing for almost the last year. I've kind of been in a rut, I guess you could say, but like a good rut. I like my rut. The next one has been a long time favorite of not just me, but everybody here on YouTube, and that's the NYX Butter Gloss. This is the shade Creme Brulee. This was the shade that I was wearing before I just added that other color to my lips. Such a great lip gloss from the drugstore. You can find these for $5. They've been around forever, but they are still some of the best out there in my opinion. These do have a little bit more color to them. They're not quite as sheer. So this is the shade Creme Brulee. It's kind of like a really nice light peachy warm nude. Looks good on top of any any lip liner or lipstick. I love that the packaging is small, but you get a good amount of product inside here. In fact, I wanted to tell you guys, this one has 8 milliliters. The CoverGirl has a whopping 10 milliliters. So there's a ton of product inside here. And then my last favorite, which is probably my all-time favorite drugstore lip gloss, you will not be a surprise to you guys, is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss. Now this one has quite a bit less product in it, even though the size is like way bigger than the others. This one only has 5.4 milliliters, so almost half what you get in the CoverGirl. But I still like this more than any other lip gloss. I love the packaging of this. It just feels very high-end, and more than anything, the smell of these, you guys. They smell like cupcakes. They're such a pleasure to put on. This is the shade Silk, which I really like. This is like a pink kind of nude, like a deeper nude pink shade. There it is right there. But my very favorite shade is actually up in my purse right now. That is the shade Opal, which happens to be an exact dupe for the Sweet Mouth from Fenty. It's more of a clear base. It's a light pink kind of sparkly clear. It also looks good on top of anything. I love the Lifter Gloss formula. It's so nice. It is a little bit more on the sticky side, but I think it gives a little bit more punch, a little bit more shine, a little bit more color than something like the CoverGirl. But they are the most high-end feeling of the drugstore lip glosses that I've tried. Okay, I did want to give one honorable mention to these because I haven't talked about them for a while. I raved about these a couple of years ago nonstop, and then I stopped talking about them, but I still use these all the time. And I'm talking about the Hard Candy Plumping Serum Lip Balms. I know people have mixed feelings about these things, and I don't even know if these are available anymore, but I love these things. I have 5 or 6 of them in all sorts of different places. I have one in my computer bag, I have one in my purse, I have one in my workout area that I'll throw on my lips in the morning if my lips are chapped. They're more of like a balm, like a chapstick, but they do have quite a bit of color in them. I have a couple different shades. The ones that I like the most are Bountiful Bear. It's kind of like a clear kind of pink. So there it is right there. You can barely see it. I love the formula of these. I think they're so nice. Now I have a good friend that told me she bought these and thought that they stunk. The smell doesn't bother me. I don't think it's like a yummy scent. I don't know. I would think something like that would bother me. So maybe there are some inconsistencies there is kind of the point that I was going to make, but I wanted to give them an honorable mention because I still use these things all the time, even though I don't talk about them as much as I used to. So if you're ever wondering why those things seem to have just fallen off the face of the earth, they really never did. I still have them all over the place. And last up, we have some eyeshadows to talk about. This is where it got a little bit difficult, but I forced myself to narrow it down to just 3, although one I'm gonna give kind of like a little asterisk next to. Let's start with the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today. I picked one palette from ColourPop. Now all of these are drugstore that you can find at Ulta that are under $15. And the one that I'm wearing today is the That's Taupe palette from ColourPop. I think if I had to pick just one to recommend to someone, this is probably the palette that I would recommend. It's such a great nude palette that leans more on the cool tone side. And it's a cool tone palette that I actually get along with. I generally prefer warmer tones on myself, but I don't mind these shades. They give such a pretty cool toned look that still works for me, that's not too gray. All the shades in here are beautiful. All the formulas are beautiful. I love the shimmers that they include in here. It creates the prettiest cooler tone nude eye looks that are absolutely glamorous. It reminds me, I know I've said this before, but if you're new here, the looks that this gives remind me of the Natasha Denona Glam palette, but at a fraction of the price. Obviously you don't get as many shades, but you definitely get that same kind of vibe. I think it's one of ColourPop's best releases over the last 5 years. I also wanted to mention the Essence 6-pan palettes. I'm going to specifically call out the Dancing Green palette because I feel like if I wanted just 3 palettes, I'd want some variety, and this is the best green palette that I've ever tried. I'm very picky with my greens. I don't love all shades of green, but these are the type of greens I think you could wear if you're kind of afraid of greens. The most green of the shades in here is this darker shade, but it's so dark that it's more of like a liner shade or like a smoking out the outer corner. It's not going to give a ton of punch or color. It gives more depth than it does color, which means the whole look from this palette still comes out on kind of the neutral side. The shimmers in here are gorgeous and they're all very different. I love this transition shade. This just creates the most beautiful green leaning eye look. Now, if you're afraid of greens, you could also go with any of their other releases. Well, maybe not any of them. I actually didn't like the purple one or the gray taupey one, but I love the coral one, the bronze one, and the rose one, and the nude one. Those are all amazing as well, but this is still probably my very favorite. But probably at the #1 spot, I think I'm still gonna put the Wet n Wild Color Icon palettes. I know these have been around for several years and I've been raving about them a lot over the last couple years. I don't even necessarily want to call out a specific one because I think they're all so good for different reasons depending on what you're looking for. If you're more into neutrals, I would go with the Nude Awakening. This one has such good shimmers and mattes from light to dark. Great lid shimmers. You got a really good champagne and then some beautiful rose golds. This creates some of the prettiest, most like elegant looking, high-end looking eye looks from a $5 eyeshadow palette. They're amazing. I love these Color Icon palettes. If you like warmer browns, and this is the one that I'd probably pick to go with the other two palettes that I picked, the Call Me Sunshine palette is absolutely gorgeous. You get some beautiful bronzes in here, some good lid shimmers, really nice, rich, dark brown that is so gorgeous in the crease. And then if you like berry tones and pinks, the Heart and Soul is also gorgeous. If you don't mind packaging that's a little bit on the fragile side, the shadows in these I think are the best that you can find at the drugstore, in the most variety you can find at the drugstore. And that is going to do it, you guys. Those are all of my top 3 drugstore products within each makeup category. What did you guys think of my list? Were there some surprises in there? Were you surprised some things did not quite make it? I'm sure there were things that were right on the cusp. It's always hard to pick a top 3, especially when it comes to drugstore makeup. I feel like I have a lot more drugstore favorites than I do high-end favorites. I, of course, would love to hear what some of your favorites were, especially if it was not included in this video today. Let me know what those recommendations are down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. I am going to do a high-end version of this in a couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that and let that be a reminder to subscribe to my channel before you leave. But that is all I have for you guys today. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. And look at that. I tried to wipe this off with like a little pad that has makeup remover on it. These are the lip liners. Nothing. These are budge proof. That is proof right there. This is what happens when I bake during Thanksgiving. I have like burn marks all over. I think I have one on my hand right here that's healing. I don't know. I need like a full body chain link suit when I bake.